What is up? It's Alex from Double Move Sports, back with Week 7 start sits at the running back position. We've got Bipocalypse this week. We got the Bills, Cowboys, Vikings, Steelers, Chargers, and Jaguars all on bye in Week 7. You think about the running backs on these teams: James Robinson, Austin Eckler, Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook, Zeke, even the Tony Pollards, Zach Mosses in these deeper leagues. Like, we don't have as many running backs to choose from this week. A lot of teams are going through buys. A lot of teams are going through running backs that are injured. So these deeper start-sit names, these depth pieces, where you really need to look at the trends, you need to look at the touches, the volume, and the matchups, it becomes so much more important. So let's get into every single player from every single game, starting with the Broncos at the Browns. This is the Thursday night matchup. Browns favored at home, only a 43-point over-under in this one. We'll start out with Cleveland. Kareem Hunt is set to miss some time. Still don't know how long it's going to be, but he should be out for this Week 7 game. And Nick Chubb is questionable at the time of this recording. Now, if Nick Chubb is active, he is a must-start in this game. And if Nick Chubb is inactive, we will talk about this. You got Dearness Johnson and Demetric Felton for the Browns. I'm not tempted to start either of those guys. I'm sitting both. If Nick Chubb is active, I'm starting him. If he's inactive, I'm probably just sitting all Browns running backs. If I had to take a shot on one of them, I'm probably actually going to go Felton because of his pass-catching ability. Dearness Johnson, to me, is just going to be touchdown or bust in this game. Doesn't add a lot as a receiver. And I just don't know if I believe in the talent against a pretty good Broncos defense, even though they did just give up a decent rushing game to the likes of Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake. So Nick Chubb is a start. The other guys are sits. And for the Denver Broncos, we have Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. Both of these guys are deep starts in this game. This is exactly why you have them on your roster. Javonte, you're still hoping for that breakout. But honestly, at this point, they're RB3s that are getting a decent amount of volume that you'll play in a pinch. And if you've got guys on bye, if you do have players hurt, I think you can go ahead and roll out Javonte or Melvin Gordon. They're getting almost identical workloads in this offense. I mean, last week we saw Javonte get 11 carries, 3 targets. Melvin Gordon had 10 carries and 3 targets. That's been about the baseline for these guys. You know, that low double-digit carries and a couple targets in the passing game. Hopefully one of them gets a touchdown as well. So you got to roll the dice if you're in a pinch. And I think both of these guys are deep starts if you're in trouble. You could surely do a lot worse. But let's go ahead and move on to the Washington football team at the Green Bay Packers. Packers, big home favorites in this game. On their side of the ball, it's easy. Aaron Jones is a start. A.J. Dillon, still a sit right now. He's had some decent weeks. He's had some decent plays. He's popped off, but he's not getting that consistent volume to be a start at this point. Still just a high-value handcuff in these leagues. And for Washington, Antonio Gibson is a start if he's active. I know he's battling that shin injury, but he is a start if he's good to go. And J.D. McKissic, I think, is a start in this game. He is someone that's game script dependent. If you're in these PPR leagues, you know, he had 8 carries, 10 targets last week against the Chiefs. So in a good game script, which I do expect against the Packers, I expect Washington to need to put up points to be passing in this game. I think McKissic is a pretty good play. And with Gibson dealing with that injury, he might not get that full snap share. So I think I'm starting to come around on both of these Washington running backs. Gibson, a must start, but McKissic in this kind of game, definitely someone I'm willing to roll out there. Chiefs at the Titans is the next game we're going to hit on here. Kansas City favored on the road, 56.5 point over under in this game. So a shootout expected. We see this a lot with the Kansas City Chiefs. And for the Chiefs, Darrell Williams, he's a start. I mean, I loved the workload he got last week, stepping in for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 21 carries and 4 targets in that Week 6 game. So he is a start. And then on the Titans side of the ball, Derrick Henry must start every single week. Not a lot of conversation needed on that one. So we will keep it moving here with the Falcons at the Dolphins. 47.5 point over under in this game. And for Atlanta, coming off the bye, we got Cordarrelle Patterson and Mike Davis, who are both starts for me in Week 7. Cordarrelle Patterson been hyper efficient with his touches this year. He has a nose for the end zone so far this year. And he's getting 8 carries and 6 targets a game, which is a great workload for a running back, especially in these PPR leagues. And then Mike Davis has not been as efficient, but on a week like this, when options are limited, Mike Davis, you know, a running back getting 12 carries and 5 targets a game, even if it's inefficient, can give you a decent floor. So I'm willing to start both of these guys in week 7. Much more optimistic about Cordarrelle Patterson. And then we'll flip over to the Dolphins side of the ball. Myles Gaskin is a sit. Honestly, you just can't trust him at this point. He's been up and down. The targets have been there in most games, but he's not turning that into fantasy points on a consistent basis. Guys like Salvon Ahmed are getting far too involved for my liking, so I'm sitting Gaskin if possible. In this one, I would much rather start J.D. McKissick in week 7, which is hard to believe that we've gotten to that point. But we'll keep it moving here with the Jets at the Patriots. Also, I have to shout out the Discord in the link below. If you want to ask more start-sit questions, if you have 2 specific guys you're deciding between, check that out. Totally free. We have a good community there as well. So I had to plug the Discord. Before I get into the Jets at the Patriots are 7-point favorites in this game at home against the New York Jets. A low-scoring over-under. We've seen that a lot for this New England team. And for New England, Damien Harris is a start. I mean, you look at the positive game scripts for the Patriots when they're leading in these games. Damien Harris is a workhorse. 18 carries a game in games where I would consider them to have a positive game script where they're winning and can really rely on that running game. In the negative game scripts, only 5 carries a game for Damien Harris. So when I look at this game against the Jets at home, I expect them to lead. I expect Damien Harris to be relied on and get a good workload. So he's a start in week 7. And Ramondre Stevenson is a sit. We finally got to see him flash in the regular season, but still not interested in starting him at this point. We'll flip over to the Jets. Not the best matchup for them. The Patriots defense has been decent against the run. They're a middle of the pack defense in that sense, but to me, Michael Carter is still a deep start. You look at what he's done over the last 4 weeks, 11 carries and 3 targets a game over the last 4 games for Michael Carter. So as a rookie, he's getting more and more ramped up into this offense. And for that volume, I'll take it, even if it is inefficient. And Ty Johnson for the Jets as a sit. I doubt you are really looking at starting him anyway, but I will throw him on here just because he did score a touchdown in their last game. But I'm still not interested in starting him in week 7. Next, we have the Panthers at the Giants. A 44-point over-under in this one. A lot of low over-unders this week, and also a lot of massive spreads. Big blowout games expected from Vegas this week. So this one's 44 points for the Panthers. I mean, this is really the battle of the backup running backs, right? We got Chuba Hubbard for the Panthers, Devontae Booker for the Giants, and Hubbard is a start. He's gotten the workload with Christian McCaffrey out. I think that continues in this game. And a decent matchup here against the New York Giants. Definitely a very, very beatable defense. And then for the Giants, you have Devontae Booker, who I still think is a start. Not as good of a matchup for them. The Panthers defense has been pretty stingy at times, but Booker last week with Saquon Barkley out had 12 carries and 4 targets. If that's his floor, from a volume perspective in this offense, I think you can continue to start him here in week 7. At the time of this recording, it looks like Saquon Barkley is going to miss that game. So obviously if Saquon is active, you're starting him and you're sitting Booker, but assuming Saquon is out, Devontae Booker is a start in week 7.
Wait, Alex, I have to stop the show because I'm dumb hyped over this new sponsorship deal we got. Shout out to our guys over at Manscaped. And look, I was skeptical, but Alex, I've been a very hairy guy for a long time. I was the kid at 13 years old in middle school.
Oh, yeah.
With chest hair showing out of the polo shirt. Like, I was that dude.
I was jealous at the time.
Well, nothing to be jealous over anymore because ever since I got this lawnmower 4.0 from them, it's been clean down there to say the least.
Manscaped has the lawnmower 4.0, not the 1, not the 2, not the 3, but the 4.0. Talk about sleepers on our show, and this has to be one of the best sleeper products out there. I was skeptical as well, and it's been an absolute game changer. Check out Manscaped. This thing is legit, and you will definitely not be disappointed by this full body trimmer. It's incredible.
So Manscaped was nice enough to give us a 20% off discount code for the Double Move Sports viewers. You can get 20% off and free shipping with code DMS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use code DMS, unlock your confidence, and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Now back to the show.
Next, we have the Bengals at the Ravens. Ravens home favorites in this game. And this one's pretty simple. For the Bengals, you got Joe Mixon. He's someone who's a must-start every single week. And for the Ravens, I think you sit all the running backs this week. Last week, we saw Latavius Murray, Le'Veon Bell, Devontae Freeman turning back the clocks and all getting rushing touchdowns. I don't think any of those guys, and Tyson Williams included in that as well, he's been on and off of the active roster. You can't start any of these guys. I think the upside is capped because it truly is a committee. And you got Lamar Jackson, who loves to run the ball in as well. So these guys aren't super involved in the passing game. It's touchdown or bust, and the volume's just not there. So all Ravens running backs are sits in week 7. But we'll get to a much more interesting one here with the Eagles at the Raiders. Raiders actually favored in this one at home. And we'll start out with the Philadelphia side of the ball because this one's tough. We got Miles Sanders, right? What do we do with Miles Sanders? I think he's a start in this game. He was a sit for me last week against a tough Tampa defense, but actually had decent efficiency. And against a Raiders run D that's a little bit more beatable than Tampa. I mean, everyone's more beatable on the ground than Tampa at this point in the season. That Bucs run D has been absolutely fantastic. But against the Raiders, I think Sanders is a start. You know, he's still seeing 10 carries and 4 targets a game, which isn't what you wanted when you drafted him, but it's still enough, especially during a bipocalypse like week 7, to have him in your lineup. So I think Sanders, if he gets into the end zone with that volume, could actually give you a really solid week. And with that being said, Kenny Gainwell is a sit, just a little bit too inconsistent for me at this point. More that scat PPR back, kind of like a Nyheim Hines. That's how I think about him in fantasy for this season. But he's a sit in week 7. And for the Raiders, Josh Jacobs, he's a must start. He's been pretty good since he's come back from those injuries, you know, the toe and the ankle both. He's had a nose for the end zone. He's been more involved in the passing game than expected, and he's just been rock solid. So Josh Jacobs is a must start this week against the Eagles, and Kenyon Drake is a sit. You know, Kenyon Drake had like 22 fantasy points last week on 6 touches, just not sustainable, not getting the usage you'd want to see when Josh Jacobs is active. So Kenyon Drake, don't buy into the inflated numbers for last week and sit him in week 7. A few more matchups to get through here. Next, we have the Lions at the Rams. Now we're getting into some of these blowouts expected by Vegas. Rams 15.5-point favorites in this game. We got the Matt Stafford revenge game against the Lions, the Jared Goff revenge game against the Rams. This one should be fun. I'm expecting, you know, Stafford and the Rams to put the pedal to the metal against this 0-6 Lions team. But at the running back spot for the Rams, pretty simple. Darrell Henderson, he's a must start. Steph and I on the pod last week talked about him as a potential buy high candidate. Like, get this guy on your roster before the blowout game. Had a really big game in week 5. So if you've got him, in week 6, he had the big blow-up game with the rushing and the receiving touchdown. So if you've got him, no questions asked. You're starting him every single week, especially against the Detroit Lions. And for the Lions, DeAndre Swift is a start. Somehow, no matter how bad this team is, DeAndre Swift continues to get it done. 7 targets a game so far this season, really relying on him through the air. So Swift is a start. Jamal Williams is a sit. He is touchdown or bust at this point. And I'm not banking on him scoring a lot of touchdowns. So Swift is a start. Jamal Williams is a sit in this revenge game in all sorts of ways with Matt Stafford and Jared Goff. But we'll keep it moving with another expected blowout. The Texans at the Cardinals. Cardinals 17-point favorites in this game at home. For the Cardinals, it's actually kind of tricky. I'm flipping my narrative for the Arizona Cardinals in week 7. To date, it's really been Edmonds as the start, James Conner as the touchdown or bust sit. But in this week 7 matchup, I actually think Edmonds is a sit and Conner is a start, and here's why. Edmonds is that PPR back, that scat back. He can give you a lot of value in a high floor when they're passing the ball. James Conner, on the flip side, is that grinder. He's got the touchdown upside. He's going to be the one running the clock out in these wins, running between the tackles, short yardage back, things like that. So in this game against Houston, when the Cardinals are 17-point favorites, Chase Edmonds has been dealing with a nagging injury. I expect James Conner to be more involved in this game than Chase Edmonds because Edmonds over the last 2 weeks, only 5 carries and 4 targets a game, where James Conner on the season, 13 carries a game. So against Houston, I think Conner can give you 60, 70 yards and a touchdown. Maybe he adds a reception or 2 as well if you're lucky. And Chase Edmonds, I mean, if he doesn't, if he's not part of this attack early when the Cardinals jump out to a lead against Houston, I think Conner's going to be the one grinding out the clock not as much of Chase Edmonds. So Connor is actually a start and Chase Edmonds a sit for me in week 7. And then for Houston, pretty simple. It's going to be like this until further notice. You're sitting all running backs. Ingram, Lindsey, David Johnson. Keep them on that bench. But let's move on. We got 3 more matchups to get into. We got the Bears at the Bucks. Tampa Bay 13-point home favorites in this game. We'll start out with the Bears. Damien Williams, you can start him if he's active. This is a tough matchup against Tampa Bay. That run D, I mentioned it earlier. It's been great, but Damien Williams can give you some value in the receiving game as well. So if Damien is active, at the time of this recording, still don't know if he's going to be activated from the COVID list or not. I would expect him to be activated, but still honestly have no idea. So Damien Williams is a start if he's active because of that PPR value. And Khalil Herbert on the flip side, I know he had a great game in week 6, but he is only a start if Damien Williams is out. He had 19 carries and 3 targets last week in Williams' absence. But this matchup is tough. So if, it's all going to be on Khalil Herbert and he's going to get the workload, I think the volume makes him startable. But if you have Damien Williams and Herbert splitting time in this game, I'm trying to keep Herbert on the bench because I'm telling you, this matchup is tough. Herbert isn't as much of a receiving back, so you're really looking at touchdown or bust. It's possible, but I'm not counting on it against a tough Bucks front. So Damien Williams is a start if active. Herbert, you're only starting if Williams is out. And then for Tampa, pretty straightforward. Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette. Rojo's been the clear backup so far this season, so he is a sit. Leonard Fournette is a start. One of the steals of the draft, honestly. He has been fantastic. Looks like a workhorse back right now, seeing a ton of work on the ground, ton of work through the air, and now we've seen the touchdowns come as well. So Leonard Fournette is a must start until further notice. Last 2 matchups of the week. On Sunday night, we've got the Colts at the 49ers. 49ers 4-point home favorites in this game. And for Indy, it's starting to get easy. JT must start every single week. It's been great to see him come alive in these past couple of games. And Nyheim Hines is a sit. He's had a couple decent games so far this season, but he just can't be trusted at this point. He's really reliant on that PPR value, and we've seen JT just get going each and every week over these past few. So I think JT keeps the momentum going in week 7. Hines, the floor is too low. The floor is nothing. So he is a sit in week 7. And then for the 49ers, Trey Sermon is an easy sit in this game. And I think Elijah Mitchell is a sit. He's just someone that is so reliant on that touchdown to have a good week. I know he is the clear lead back right now, at least until we see Jeff Wilson come back, unless we see someone else emerge. But you just can't trust Shanahan all the time. And while it does look like he is relying on Elijah Mitchell, even if Mitchell gets 13, 15 carries in this game, I think he's still going to need the touchdown to give you a good performance in this one against a Colts, run D that isn't terrible. It's not the best in the league, but they're middle of the pack. They can get it done. So Elijah Mitchell is a sit. And with that, we'll get to the last game of the week, the Saints at the Seahawks. Seahawks getting all these primetime games with Russell Wilson out, but New Orleans is actually a 3.5-point favorite on the road. And this one's fairly simple. I mean, for the Saints, Alvin Kamara is a start. No questions asked. I guess for Seattle, it gets a little bit tricky because we do have some injuries to deal with here. We got Alex Collins, Rashad Penny, and then DJ Dallas and Travis Homer with Chris Carson out. I think if Alex Collins is active, he's a start, 18 carries and 2 targets a game in the 2 games without Chris Carson. So he is getting the volume as the lead back. But the thing is, Alex Collins might not play in this one. So if Collins is inactive, you got Rashad Penny coming off of IR, you got DJ Dallas, you got Travis Homer. I'm sitting all of those other options against the Saints defense that's been pretty stingy as well. So Alex Collins is someone you can start if he's active. And if he's not, I'm avoiding all Seattle Seahawks options. It's tricky with this one being on Monday night. So if you're going to risk it and try to play Alex Collins, just make sure that's confirmed before the Sunday games, or be sure to have a backup plan. But in this game, Kamara is a start, Collins is a start if active, avoiding everybody else. And that's going to do it for week 7 start sits at the running back position. It's going to be a fun one this week. You're going to have to dig deep for some of these starts. As always, like and subscribe helps us out a ton here at Double Move Sports. Join that Discord below and continue the conversation with us. If you have any other start sit questions leading up to the week, drop them in the comments below as well. Steph and I are hanging out in there trying to answer as many as we can. But again, this is Alex from Double Move Sports, and we'll see you next time.